Hey folks, Clint Harris here, and we're working on Polaris RZR 170 transmission. What happened, let me show you in the old case here. You can see transmission housing cracked. This is the back side of the transmission. And down in here, we've got several more cracks you may be able to see. That's where the bearings, the main bearings sit. As you can see, this is the tail shaft. There's a cover that goes here, and the output shaft comes here, where the gear cog actually ties on. So we've got it out at this point. We've ordered our new parts, ordered parts from Babbitts because they were the cheapest place actually to get them from. A little side note on your bearings, the main bearings that are in the housing, those are standard bearings, commercially available from anywhere. You don't have to order Polaris bearings. I've got part numbers 6004, 6302, things like that. This little bearing right here, this little needle bearing, is one of the bearings that fell out, of course, when the case cracked. As long as this bearing here, a 6205. Both of them in bad shape. Got to replace all the bearings with new ones. Ended up getting those through a place in Kingsport, Tennessee, Kingsport Armature and Electric Company. And the bearings cost me a grand total of $21, whereas this one single needle bearing by itself through Babbitts or any Polaris dealership, it was $69.95. This other bearing, $34. So great savings if you can buy your bearings commercially. The only difference is, as you'll see where I put them in the new case, they're a sealed bearing. That's real easy to fix. If you don't want them sealed, take a screwdriver, pry that little plastic piece out. Myself, I prefer to leave them as a sealed bearing. They come factory pre-lubricated with grease on the inside, so I didn't want that grease mixing in with the transfer case fluid. I also didn't want the transfer case fluid potentially washing that grease out of the bearings. So I left them as sealed bearings here. Here, the needle bearing, of course, goes under your bull gear here, and the other big bearing goes back under here. I've already put this piece back together. Now, let me show you what happened when the housing cracked. So this piece here is actually your forward-reverse selection. When you put it in forward and reverse, this piece slides up and down. So we had the bull gear here, which connects this lower part of the main shaft. So here's our old parts. You can see how chewed up the gears are. So the bearing went out, caused this gear to start flopping. The other old part here was the gear that rolls around it. It's tore all to pieces as well. So what we've done is we've replaced this gear. It's in the housing already. We replaced this gear. It's already put into this assembly. Minor hand tools needed to do this. Set of snap ring pliers, punch, and a hammer, of course, to knock your bearings back in with. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and rebuild the back case of the transmission. First thing we're going to drop in is our repaired parts. So there's our bull gear. It's going to match down. If I can get this to go in that new bearing and match up the gears at the same time, we'll be doing well. There we go. Slides in. Seamless operation. Okay, this one here fits in from the top side down. A little bit more difficult to get it in since they're angled gears. Alright, you can see what happens when you shift gears. This cog moves forward and up and down. So that's going to put you in reverse and forward. So it's fairly simple design. It's a matter of whether you want to go front or back. Alright, next piece is put in. Air shift selector. This one's very straightforward. It slides into your shift gear. Pin drops in. So you can see that makes things move up and down, right? Next piece we're going to put in. Get that in the right way. You're doing well. A little difficult to do while I'm trying to show you here. Okay, there you go. So you can see when you shift from forward to reverse, it moves the cog up and down, engages or disengages your gear sets. Okay, this piece here is what goes to the outside of the transmission. Got a new seal in the case, Of course, you never want to reuse your old seals. Forgot I'm going to have to take this piece back out. Anyhow, it slides down in through here. Transmission selector switch on the outside turns this, in turn, turns this piece, moves you into forward and reverse. So there you have it, folks. That's real quick rebuild on how to put this thing back together again. And I'm going to pull this all back apart. Show you where the shift selector goes. Drops in just like so. Oops, if I put it together the right way the first time. Make sure your gears are meshed up and matched up. What you definitely don't want to do is put this thing together, get it all back in, and figure out that you can't shift. Because that, my friends, would make for a bad day. Take on it. There's everything slid back in place with the shift selector switch. All I have to do now is manage to get this gear back in as well. As so. Drop my pin back in. Drop this gear back in. We are good to go. We are now set up, ready to put this thing back in the razor. Set it down. All right. So, well, I got to actually put my other gear sets in back here on the back side. Other than that, ready to put it back in the razor. When you pull it apart, definitely check all your gears, your bearings, and your seals. Make sure everything's good to go. This piece here is what slides into the side, meshes up to the other gear on the inside. This one here is your case cover. Goes simply right there. It's all too easy from there. Let me show you over here on the razor where it goes to.
Ta-da!
Alright. A little bit dark up under here. Nothing to put the flashlight being fixed. Alright, so the handy dandy mag light, you can see here, this is the gear that comes out from the front side of the transmission where the belts are at. So you've got the belts that drive the gears, or I'm sorry, drive the clutches on the front side. Clutches come through this main shaft. The main shaft's going to mesh up to the gears that, of course, are in the back side of the housing. The only hard part here is getting things to match up when you put them up in here. There is a ball bearing that's going to fall out at you when you take all this apart. The ball bearing is spring loaded. It goes in this little assembly right here. Simply take a Allen wrench, pull that back out before you put the back side of the housing on. Get all your gears and stuff matched up, put your ball bearing back in, and tighten that back down with the Allen wrench. It's real simple. Again, Babbitts online has all the parts you need to fix this. I'm not a Babbitts salesman or anything by any means, you can tell, but their customer service was great, helped me determine what parts I needed and what parts I didn't. We do have a new housing seal here. I'm going to have to do just a little bit of cleanup, make sure the housing matches back up. I determined the culprit of the problem was the rear axle shaft slightly bent. Somehow during one of our off-road adventures, our axle shaft got bent ever so slightly. What that caused was the chain to move unevenly. Chain's moving unevenly. The little man was trying to go up a hill 14 miles into a mountain. all of a sudden, bam, it tightened up the chain a little bit too much, pulled on that aluminum housing. The aluminum housing broke. Of course, and then we're done. All of our gears at that point had broken and separated internally in the housing. So I do have this new axle shaft as well. I'm going to rebuild this entire rear end assembly, the swing arm back in, and we'll be done. So folks, there it is. This is Clint Harris and little Clint, and he's got something to say.
Hey Dad, how about we give them an overlook of the RZR and what we've got going on right now?
All right, big guy, go ahead. Tell them about your snorkel kit you got too.
Oh yeah.
Homemade snorkel. Snorkel kit from Lowe's, $16.99 worth of parts.
As you can see, it's got front and rear bumpers. It's got a winch and Sasquatch lights on the front. 23-inch tires. Ready to go.
Yeah. Big wheel kit we got from Santa Claus. He was nice enough to bring us a big wheel kit. And a lot of our other accessories on this RZR, mostly homemade from the front and rear bumpers. And Rocky Mountain ATV. It's been a real good source for getting parts for this RZR.